how desirable is the Cowboys head coaching job? Because on the one hand, Fox Sports is listing, the positions as they become open.
Jane said yesterday that around the league, this is still a desirable position.
Exactly. And Fox Sports listed them as number one. Leapfrog the Patriots with all their cap money, a young quarterback. Fox says the Cowboys are number one. And then we go to the cut that I know has gotten a lot of traction nationally, but especially here in Dallas. This is cut number 8. This is Troy Aikman last night on ESPN. Is the Cowboys head coaching job coveted?
As far as a coveted job, I don't know that that's accurate. I mean, really? I do think the Cowboys are obviously a high-profile team. Whoever is covered or whoever is head coach of that team is certainly going to draw a lot of attention. But I think most football people that take over as a head coach, they want to do it on their terms.
That's fair.
That's hard to do. And it's, if you take a Dan Campbell, for instance, is Dan Campbell if he's with the Dallas Cowboys? It's hard to imagine that he is. It's hard to imagine that a lot of these coaches might be. So I love the Dallas Cowboys. I played there for 12 years. I wish them well. But to say that it's a coveted job, I'm not sure I would necessarily agree with that.
So then you have somebody that we all know and love in Troy Aikman giving a very different answer than perhaps other places. Babe, I know you're friends with Troy, but what do you think about, because both feel like reasonable explanations.
I would agree with you. They're both reasonable explanations. And in fairness, Scott Van Pelt asked Troy, is this a coveted job?
Yeah.
So Troy didn't pull the word coveted out of his rear end.
Sure.
He was responding to coveted job. But I would agree with everything, honestly, that Troy said. But if you're looking at the job openings, I mean, I know Vrabel filled the job in New England, but you want to go to New England, you want the Dallas Cowboys. Do you want to go to Jacksonville, or do you want the Dallas Cowboys? Do you want the New Orleans Saints or the Cowboys? I agree with you. Obviously,
maybe
Bob
the
Kraft,
Bears. Maybe the Bears.
The Bears would be the one where you might say, obviously you've got a quarterback that you can work with and develop, and that appears to be headed to what they hoped he would be, but we'll see what happens there too. As we all know, there's a lot of guys get drafted, and 4 years later, they're on the third team at quarterback. Yeah. But no, I like Caleb Williams, and there's a lot to be said for, I think, Chicago going there. But, hey, the Dallas Cowboys are still, there's about 5 professional sports teams, right? There's the New York Yankees, there's the Boston Celtics, the LA Lakers, the Dallas Cowboys,
maybe the Dodgers.
Dodgers, yes. Dodgers. I grew up in L.A., so
pretty much, they're in the top 10 easily.
Yeah, I mean, it's and obviously they're the highest rated team. They're the most popular team. They're worth the most money of any sports franchise. So there's a lot to be said for that. But if I'm a head coach and I'm going to stake my reputation on winning, they kind of haven't won big here for about 30 years, ever since really Jimmy Johnson left, because we all know Barry won with Jimmy's players. And not only with his players, but with the mindset. You know what I mean? The Troy Aikmans and the Daryl Johnstons and the Darren Woodsons, they were weaned on how to go about your business. So I think as time went on, that dissipated. And kind of guys got here and said, I'm a Dallas Cowboy. It's like, well, no, you're not really yet. It's like you go to training camp, you didn't get the star on your helmet, right? You don't get the star on your helmet until you make the team. So you're kind of earning your way. So I agree with everything that was said there. I'll never forget Chris Collinsworth. We were talking. He said, hey, we would take 17 Dallas Cowboy games on Sunday night.
I have no doubt about that.
So the ratings, and doesn't matter. I always say, and it's funny because I think a little apathy is starting to creep in for the first time. I've been here 35 years. And I think for the first time since, the Cowboys were winning Super Bowls the second time around in the 90s, apathy is starting to creep in. To your point, where you said, well, I don't care who they hire. What's going to change?
Yeah.
And that's never been the case. I've always said, and doing the broadcast and, having been a former Cowboy and living here in Dallas and being connected to things and blah, blah, blah. When the Cowboys are losing, I get calls from all around the country, top radio stations. And
sure.
They want to know why the Cowboys are losing. And when they're winning, they want to know why they're winning. We don't get a lot. I guarantee you, the guy in Jacksonville who does Jacksonville radio, I don't know who it is. He's not getting a lot of calls with people in New York and L.A. and Chicago saying, hey, we want to find out, why is Jacksonville not winning? They don't care. So here, there's always been that you care, whether you love them, you hate them, you this, you that. And for the first time, again, I sense a little bit of apathy creeping in of, well, what's going to change? And we'll see.
Real quick, Mike Tomlin to any team who may inquire about his availability in a potential trade, quote, I have no message, save your time. So
wow.
I want to because Mike Tomlin specifically.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't want to try and talk for Troy. I think he's right when he says the high profile part. This is just like you said,
absolutely.
17 games, they would take him in a heartbeat.
Yep.
But I also agree with Troy completely on the concept that if you're a coach, you know that there are things that you have to encounter. Ezekiel Elliott may not have been good for any other team. They were good for the Cowboys, and maybe the coach didn't want that player. And does he have the decision to say, I need to cut this guy?
Yeah, but
because I got to make a statement to a locker room.
Right,
and now
right.
you've taken my control of my locker room and my coaching staff away from me, and I have to deal with that. Troy, when you guys were there, everything was built on winning and excellence. And I think that's the standard Troy holds this to, is we built something because we kicked butt all the time, and we knew all the little details that it took to become great. And that's where I feel like he's coming from, is he feels a little let down that it's not the same.
Sure. I mean, and people think Troy hates the Cowboys. He doesn't hate the Cowboys. I think he hates the fact that of what they are today and what they were when he was a Dallas Cowboy.
Yes.
And I say hate, that's far too strong, but
he's hurt.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, I'm speaking for him, which I always say I can barely speak for myself, let alone speak for another person. But I think he'd love it to see the Cowboys come back to prominence. It's not like he's guarding his territory and he wants to be
they couldn't do it
the
without
72
me,
Dolphins that pop open the champagne because the last team has lost a football game. And no, I think he'd love to see the Cowboys do well. I know he loves Dak. I know he loves Dak, wants to see him do well, loves him as a person, thinks he's a great quarterback, all the above. But and let me backtrack one moment, if I may. I know a number of people, again, 35 years I've been here, right? I came here in 89 as a player and been doing something, either CBS 11, TV, and Cowboy games for the last 28 years. And anyway, when you look at, where was I going? I lost my so I know people that have been in the organization, right, in all levels. And they go to, and they will tell you, boy, what a S show this is. What and then they go somewhere else. They go to another NFL franchise, and then it's like, oh boy, I thought it was bad there, but you won't believe what's going on here. And I won't give you names, obviously, or franchises.
Feel free to if you want to.
I know, but it's not. The point is, there is no utopia.
Yeah.
Right? There is no utopia. There is no perfect organization or franchise. And, obviously the Steelers have tremendous stability. Let me say this. Mike McCarthy was working on last year of his contract this year. Obviously, we know that. Mike Tomlin got an extension at the start of this year, got a 3-year extension. If I'm Mike McCarthy, I'm saying, wait a minute. He hasn't won a playoff game in 7 years.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying Tomlin's not a good coach, so don't misconstrue that. But I'm just saying, I'm Mike McCarthy, and I'm saying, wait a minute, I just had 3 12-5 seasons. We've been to the playoffs each of the last 3 years. Won one playoff game. I understand that wasn't the goal, to win one playoff game. But you're looking around saying, wait a minute, he just got a 3-year extension. It was 6 years at the time. Now it's 7 years. Pittsburgh has not won a playoff game. Kevin Stefanski in the opener, Cleveland. He just got extended for 3 years. At the start of the season. And Mark McCarthy is like, wait a minute, this guy? And then, of course, you go whip his team in the opener, but everybody ended up doing that. But I'm sure you'd be sitting there, right? And you're saying, wait a minute, I'm doing this over here, he's doing that over there. I'm fighting for my job, and this guy just got an extension. So I think by the end of it, and obviously I wasn't in the discussions, I wasn't privy to anything going on between the Cowboys owner and Mike McCarthy. But he's a Pittsburgh guy. And if you know Pittsburgh guys, I mean, they're a different breed. And Russ Grimm played with Russ Grimm at Washington, and Rich Malott, from Coriopolis, Pennsylvania, right outside. These are steel mill tough guys. And I think Mike was emasculated by the end of this.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, again, I wasn't privy to any of it. So, but I think at some point you say, you know what? You know, if you don't want me, I don't want you.
Yeah.
And again, well, somewhere down the road, book will be written. There's McCarthy will talk, but again, I think, and it's funny because the last couple of weeks, and you guys heard it, he almost got defiant in terms of defending. Before he'd have these subtle little jabs, and
I could see that.
But at the end of it, he was almost defiant, and I think he was just tired of what was going on.
You mentioned Ben Johnson earlier. If you kind of had maybe a person that you would just love to see get this, who would that be?
Well, it would be Ben Johnson. I don't know that that'll happen. I don't know what's going to happen. But, and I know people say, oh, you got to be kidding. But Pete Carroll.
Really?
Pete Carroll would be an intriguing guy to me, only because, again, who are you not hiring? So if you hire Pete Carroll, you say, wait a minute, you're going to pass up. Who is that guy that you're passing up? There's not that guy where you say, wait a minute, we had a chance to get Don Shula, or we had a chance to get Bill Walsh, or we had a chance to get fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Carroll would be interesting to me too. He's closer in age to the owner, but I think he still does relate to the younger players. I mean, he's won, right? Here's the other part. There are 3 coaches that have won a national championship and a Super Bowl. 2 of them have coached for the Cowboys. Now you got all 3.
Yeah, let's get the third one.
Jimmy Johnson, let's get that third guy in here.
Wow, that is bizarre.
Yeah, let's do it, Kevin. That's great. I love this. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
And Pete Carroll was in a situation in Seattle. He was not, John Schneider was in charge of personnel and ran the draft and all that. Now, obviously, you have input, but so it's not a situation like a Belichick where he's omnipresent in the organization. He handled everything. Signed contracts, blah, 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 and told them how much money to give players and who to draft. And so Pete Carroll doesn't come in saying, wait a minute, I can't work under these conditions with the owner being the GM. And I just think I would be kind of excited if Pete Carroll got here. Other than, again, if you're going to tell me we're not getting Ben Johnson.
Yeah, I got you.
I keep hearing that name, by the way.
Ben Johnson?
No, Pete Carroll's name. Yes, Ben Johnson. But Pete Carroll's name, I see it floating in a lot of different Twitter circles.
And again, I want to make it very clear, no inside information. But if you told me Pete Carroll was going to be the head coach here, I'd say, oh, that'll be cool. That'll be interesting. That'll be an interesting deal.
What's your, I don't know what the number or whatever it is, your likelihood that Dak Prescott next year can be Dak Prescott 2023?
It's a good question because you're a year older and you've got another major injury that you're dealing with. So, he's obviously going to be less mobile than he was. It's not the $6 million man. If you're old enough to remember the $6 million man, and we can rebuild you and make you better. And Lee Majors, that was always my favorite. You guys are too young. The open of the show where Lee Majors is running, and I was like, oh my God, how fast is that guy going? Not knowing that. Yeah. It's like when I listen to music, I was a big music fan and still am, but 93 KHJ, if we have any Los Angelinos out there listening, it was a kind of a rock and roll station on the AM dial, and everything was A&M, of course, at that point. But I always thought when they played Creedence Clearwater Revival, up there, I thought the bands were sitting in a room, and then they would bring them into the room to play their song. And then they'd go back into the room and
amazing.
John, Paul, Ringo, George. I thought they were just sitting there, and they said, well, let's listen to the Beatles. And those guys came out. And then I at like 24, I realized, hey, you know what? That's not really how that works. They've got these records.
Yeah.
Anyway, what else you got for me?
I think.
Come on.
I was going to say, I think that's.
Oh, but getting back to Dak,
probably it for now.
Dak's going to be, he's a pocket passer now, clearly, but can you win with him? Absolutely. All right. You got to get better around him, though.
I completely agree. Yeah.
The receiver, they had one receiver. I like Brandon Cooks a lot. I usually don't get into the coaching aspect of things, but I thought they misused him. He should have been a 1,000-yard receiver. As a matter of fact, this is the only place that didn't make him a 1,000-yard receiver. He's been 5 stops, and every place he's 1,000 yards. And I can show you film. He's open. I'm like, throw him the ball. Jeez. But,
well, the new coach will have $11 million in a first-round pick. That probably is enough to fix.
Hell yeah.
Mike,
we're going to fix it all. Thank you very much for jumping on with us, Babe. Appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you guys for having me.